Coming up on this edition of Airborne, the NTSB reviews commentary from a whistleblower on the Dreamliner's battery issues. Transportation Secretary Ray LaHood calls the aviation industry strong. And airshow pilot Kirby Chambliss walks away from a forced landing in El Salvador. I'm Ashley Hale. Welcome to Airborne on Aero-TV. Securaplane was rushed into providing non-conforming battery chargers to Boeing for the Dreamliner. This according to a whistleblower who was fired 6 years ago from the company for alleged misconduct. Michael Leon said he was let go because he raised safety concerns about the battery systems, now at the heart of the NTSB's investigation of Boeing's new airplane. The NTSB is currently reviewing information from more than one whistleblower as part of its investigation, according to a report from Reuters. Kelly Nantel, the board's director of public affairs, said the board is pursuing whistleblower information where warranted. Securaplane told the NTSB during a visit to its Arizona headquarters this week that Leon's dismissal had nothing to do with raising concerns about the battery chargers destined for the Dreamliner. They said he was let go due to repeated misconduct, a position supported by the administrative law judge. The FAA later concluded that the parts Leon said were non-conforming were prototypes and were not installed on any airplanes. In a speech delivered to the Aero Club of Washington, D.C. on Wednesday, Transportation Secretary Ray LaHood said, quote, "Today, the American aviation industry is strong, and it's getting stronger. More people are flying, and more cargo is being shipped around the world," end quote. LaHood said that next-gen is no longer on the horizon, it's happening now. He cited the department's Metroplex initiative as an example of the implementation. LaHood also said he has confidence in, quote, Boeing's ability to create a safe aircraft, end quote, but said the issues with the batteries will have to be resolved before the Dreamliner can be put back into service. Republic Airways Holdings said Wednesday it has reached an agreement with American Airlines to operate 53 Embraer E-175 aircraft under the American Eagle brand, signaling a continued long-term relationship between the two companies. The capacity purchase agreement will be operated by the company's Republic Airlines subsidiary, with service expected to start in June of 2013. The agreement, which is subject to court approval, was enabled by the new pilot contract and marks the first time in American Eagle's history it will be flying large regional jets. Republic also signed an agreement with Embraer to purchase 47 new aircraft and lease a previously owned Embraer E-175 jet aircraft, including the first deliveries of Embraer's enhanced fuel performance aircraft. In addition, the carrier will acquire 5 previously owned E-175s from a third party. Airshow pilot Kirby Chambliss is safe after having an engine problem with his airplane in El Salvador. That story and more when Airborne returns in just a moment.
Since its inception, Redbird Flight Simulations has been dedicated to developing new training technologies and processes in an ongoing effort to make aviation safer, more affordable, and more accessible. Consider Redbird's flagship flight training device, the FMX, a superior quality, full-motion, feature-rich advanced aviation training device priced with real-world flight training organizations in mind. With standard features that are anything but standard, such as wraparound visuals, a fully enclosed cockpit, quick change configurations, scenario-based training compatibility, and of course, an electric motion platform, the FMX serves up a level of realism that is simply unavailable in other training devices on the market. For more information on Redbird flight simulations, the Redbird FMX, and Redbird's entire line of flight training devices, visit www.redbirdflightsimulations.com.
Are you ready for the next generation of light sport airplanes? Check out the all-new Bristol. Fun, fast, and easy to fly. Learn more at www.bristol.com.
And we're back. Airshow pilot Kirby Chambliss, in preparation for an air show in El Salvador Wednesday, has suffered an engine failure, but is reported to be okay, though we understand the airplane is totaled. Preparing for the Yopango Air Show in San Salvador on the 26th and 27th of January, Chambliss was flying with at least one other aircraft when the engine failed, and he was left with few landing options near the end of the runway. Fellow airshow pilot Skip Stewart posted a Facebook update noting that, quote, "There was a lot of false information about Kirby out there. I was flying off his wing practicing a dual routine when it happened. So this is the correct information. We were flying a formation high alpha pass. At the end of the runway, Kirby's engine quit. There was nowhere to land. He descended into a rocky ravine and crashed onto the side of a steep embankment. I was watching him the whole way. The plane crashed into small trees and flipped over. The airplane was badly damaged, but Kirby extracted himself and walked to a clearing. I had immediately called for the rescue helicopter, and they were there very quickly, a testament to the readiness of the El Salvadoran military. Kirby is fine with superficial scrapes and bruises." End quote. Pictures of the aircraft being airlifted from the crash site by helicopter does confirm extensive damage by the aircraft, and pictures of Chambliss afterwards show him smiling and celebrating his survival. All in all, this accident could have gone a lot worse. A problem with a fuel line prompted the Pentagon to ground all F-35B aircraft last Friday, with no firm date for the resumption of flight operations being set. The problem reportedly cropped up in a fuel line connected to the exhaust system of the short takeoff vertical landing model of the Joint Strike Fighter. Reuters reports that the system failed before one of the jets took off on a training flight. The innovative fuel line is designed to enable movement of the exhaust system, a function normally handled by heavier hydraulics. Joe Delvadoa, spokesman for the Pentagon's F-35 program office, said the impact, if any, of the incident on the overall test flight program is not yet known. In just a moment, ANN's editor-in-chief Jim Campbell has his impressions from last week's Light Sport Expo in Sebring, Florida. You're watching Airborne on Aero-TV.
Pipistrel's innovative new Alpha trainer has been designed from the ground up for flying school operations. Powered by a Rotax 80 horsepower engine, the Alpha burns only 2.5 U.S. gallons of fuel per hour at 100 to 108 knots, giving you the opportunity to make flight training cost-effective once again. Be sure to check out the Pipistrel Alpha when you're ready to select your next trainer. Get more info at pipistrel-usa.com. No other aircraft explores the limits of the light sport category more than the Carbon Cub SS. It can land and take off in patches that you thought were accessible only to helicopters and hikers, and it does so with the grace, confidence, and control that are Cub hallmarks. If you thought that light sport was just for budget-minded beginners or for veteran pilots stymied by FAA medicals, you simply must fly a Carbon Cub SS. Check us out at www.cubcrafters.com.
Welcome back. If you'd like to suggest a story for Airborne, Aero-TV, our website, or our podcast, you can drop us an email to news-spy@aero-news.net. A true tragedy involving a replica Wright B flyer accident took the lives of 2 test pilots in Springfield, Ohio in July of 2011. The NTSB has found that prior to the accident, that the aircraft was seen in a spiraling descent to the ground. Post-accident investigation of the airframe showed that, quote, the airplane's left propeller shaft revealed a broken weld, which would have prevented the left propeller from being driven by the engine. Further examination of the joint identified incomplete weld penetration during welding, thus about 25 to 35% of the through thickness of the propeller shaft tube was not welded to the propeller shaft end. This incomplete weld penetration occurred in the inner areas of the joint. Visible defects, such as pores and voids, were observed in the welded areas. The parts engineering drawing specifies complete weld penetration. The on-scene accident examination of the wreckage did not reveal any other pre-impact anomalies. The NTSB ruled that the probable cause for the accident was due to, quote, the flight crew's failure to maintain airplane control following a partial loss of engine thrust during cruise flight. Contributing to the accident was the failed weld as a result of incomplete welding on the left propeller shaft, which led to the partial loss of engine thrust. Once again, it's TGIF, and that means it's time for our weekly barnstorming commentary. Fresh from our trip to Sebring's USSAE 2013, Jim has a few observations to share about this year's event and the health of the LSA industry overall.
Thanks, Ashley, and hi, folks. Well, we survived another Sebring. And to make a long story short, we had a chance to take the pulse of the LSA community, and in most cases, well, the patient may survive, but let's just say it's in a little bit of trouble right now. We had previously mentioned the issue that was brought up to us by a number of manufacturers of arcane and arduous paperwork requirements from the FAA. The fact that quite a few aircraft, at least 6 or 7 that we know of, could not make it to Sebring because of the fact that paperwork was not done, in some cases having been waited on the FAA for as long as 4 months to get things done. It's not fair, it's not right. I understand that the FAA is trying to show that it owns the turf, but the problem was that LSA was supposed to be free of all this, that the FAA was supposed to provide oversight and the community was supposed to be somewhat self-governing. What's happening right now is the FAA has decided that's not good enough, that they're going to impose their rules no matter what ASTM says, and in many cases what they're doing is arcane and ridiculous. Paperwork being sent back because the signature flows outside the signature box, because documents are out of order, and instead of fixing it on site, no, they've got to go back to Washington and write a denial letter. These people are hanging on, in some cases, by their toenails. There's a guy with $500,000 worth of inventory that he can't sell, waiting for FAA paperwork. People want to do business. The FAA has gotten in the way. These aren't good airplanes. I've seen nothing so far to suggest otherwise. If there was, believe me, you'd hear it from me. You know you would. The FAA is no longer a partner in progress for LSA. It is now an impediment. But there's this other issue. We have a bad economy. It's hard to sell airplanes when people are wondering whether or not they're going to have jobs, where the economy is going to go. And it's not going to happen, at least the foreseeable future, that we're going to have a better economy to deal with. It's going to happen slowly, and whatever does happen, it's going to be incremental. And people are going to be very cautious with their money. So that behooves LSA to make its case better and more positively than ever before. And this is where we have to criticize the community. 1, there's a tremendous amount of misinformation out there. 2, salesmanship is at best poor. We saw a couple of better examples than we've seen in the past, but they were the rarity. Matter of fact, darn near unique. And on top of everything else, there is no question that the LSA industry does not know how to put its best foot forward to the public. Obviously, we're going to try to address some of this stuff with our Sport Plane Resource Guide and help create some clarity out of the confusion, but it's up to the industry to make a better case for itself. If it wants to succeed, it has to change tactics, it has to be more professional, and it's got to do better business. We'll have more on this and other topics in the not too distant future. In the meantime, count on us to give you as much LSA information as we can gather as quickly as we can. For the Aero-News Network, Airborne, and Aero-TV, I'm Jim Campbell. Now go fly something.
Finally, today on Airborne, the commemorative Air Force's famous Boeing B-29 Super Fortress bomber, FIFI, the only remaining flying example of the aircraft in the world, returned to the sky Saturday, January 13th, and flew to her home base in Addison, Texas. The flight crew arrived in Midland, Texas, and conducted a successful maintenance flight, followed by the 1.5-hour trip. It was FIFI's first flight since October 2012. The B-29 experienced trouble with the No. 2 engine and returned safely to the ground during a routine photo mission. It was determined the No. 2 engine would need major repairs and the aircraft was grounded. For 3 months, maintenance crews have worked to repair the engine and get the historic aircraft flying again. A fundraising campaign was launched in November with a goal of raising $200,000 to repair the engine and purchase a replacement. So far, the campaign has raised just over $105,000. We'll get comprehensive, real-time, 24/7 coverage of the latest aviation and aerospace stories anytime at Aero-News.net. And please remember, Airborne is streamed twice weekly and is always online. Join us again next Tuesday. I'm Ashley Hale. Thanks for watching.